All right, Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my live chat. So, I have been sick. I'm feeling a lot better now, and there is a lot going on in the world. So, I will start the discussion today by talking about the pandemic of the coronavirus and how this is going to possibly affect us in the long run. Good morning. Welcome to the live chat. What's up, JA? What's up, Sean? What's up, Slinky Moon? Stinky Moon? Skunky Moon? I don't know. That's a weird font. I can't read it. What's up, Awesome Jesse? Good to see you, Swiss Man. David Jones. Don Titot. Don T. What's up, South Texas? Hey, Timmy. Good to see you. Timmy. All right, so back to what I was saying on this live chat. I'm going to start with talking about the pandemic and kind of vamp and get you guys up to speed on what I know about what's going on with the coronavirus. And then I want to talk about how Don Lemon mocked us openly and how that made me feel as a Southerner and as a person with deep roots in the South. And as a person who sounds a bit like the mocking, let's just start there. And we'll backpedal to the pandemic because I'm ticked. It's not like I could despise Don Lemon any more than I already do, but at least I thought until now. I heard Glenn Beck say something, and Glenn Beck's not the most radical of us, right? He's kind of down the middle. And I saw Glenn Beck say something. He vamped on this, and he said that he's never been closer to wanting to secede from the Union and have an open civil war than after hearing how Don Lemon and those, how they disrespected all Americans, all Trump supporters, but specifically Southerners. And if you haven't seen it, just Google this. You can, Don Lemon mocks Southerners if you want. But Don Lemon, if anybody has any guess about who I'm actually talking about, I just call him Don Lemon. But anyway, he and a panel of guests started mocking Trump supporters in a Southern accent and laughing like junior high schoolers. And I could see how potentially people on the left who are really have a superiority complex, they really, they want to call us white supremacists. They just think they're supremacist to everyone. They think they're above everybody else. It reminds me of the Hunger Games. You've got them all made up in all their weird fashions and all their weird ways, and they're mocking the people of the other, of these conquered, like agricultural based people. And, it just, I could see how if you were on that side, that might tickle you. You might think that's funny. But just listening to it as a person who speaks that way, okay, who comes from a long history of people who speak that way, to sit and listen to Don Lemon and these other two characters openly mock us using, pretending that we're dumb, calling us rubes, talking about how we're uneducated, how, we're happy in our ignorance. And, where are all the national corporations based? Where are they actually based? I mean, who's producing the most in this country? Huh? Are you people? I'll go back and thank the super chats. I don't know. I hate to stop because I'm on these vamps, but and it makes me lose my train of thought. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. But so people from New York, people from, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, people from Chicago, these individuals, I don't know. I lose it. I get, have you ever seen me tongue-tied? Have you ever seen me this tongue-tied? I'm going to let you guys talk a little bit about this because I'm so beside myself. I'm with Glenn Beck. I mean, you guys want a war? This is the equivalent of spitting in my face. This is like spitting in my face. And it's just, I don't know. What do you guys think? How did this thing make you feel? Have you heard this? Have you heard them mocking us? Have you heard them laughing at us? calling us stupid. Oh, where's my comments? Well, now I'm relying on the comments, and I can't see them. There they are. You need a Bigfoot or a crazy uncle story. I'm beside myself. They want us to fight each other. I'm ready. Honestly, I've been this guy. You can see the progression of me on this over the last 2.5 years. At first, I was like the hippie dude with the long hair, and I'm like, hey, man, just can't we all get along? What the heck's going on here, yo? And as I'm exposed more and more to their psychotic behavior, and then at the same time, I'm like, okay, so I'm big on, this will help us transition a little bit. I'm big on John Mark and the secessionist and separation movement that I think he's behind. And, I will say that I was talking about this before he had a channel, but he's dedicated his time to the research on this, and he really has some great points, which leads me to the next headline about Virginia. There was a joint press conference held by the West Virginia governor, and he was with, it's Jerry Falwell Jr., who is a Virginian Republican conservative. So you could say it's the number one Republican conservative voice of West Virginia in the form of the governor, and the number one conservative Virginian in the form of Jerry Falwell Jr. And they had this joint press conference where they openly invited the counties who are sanctuary counties in Virginia to join West Virginia, which caused me to do a really in-depth study over the last few hours, well, all morning long, and I think I started last night, on the history of Virginia, how West Virginia became a state. And I don't think that it would be very possible right now for counties to break away from a state like, say, Northern California counties and do the Jefferson state thing, and create a new state. That would require a lot of trouble. But this idea of seceding under previous agreements, seceding from Virginia to join West Virginia, almost like, what is it, 160 years, don't make me do the math later, that from the time that West Virginia became a state, that you could still go back in time, basically, and Virginia counties could decide to go ahead and join West Virginia if they have an open invitation, which they do now. They passed in the Congress a resolution offering officially Virginia counties to secede from West Virginia, secede from Virginia, rather, and join West Virginia. And now the governor has doubled down on that. And he's also had this conference. And so it's starting to look like we will see Virginia diminish as a state and West Virginia become a much bigger state, more powerful. Their money will immediately become, their taxes, their revenue will go way up. And so anyway, I think that's very interesting. It's something that I've been predicting for a while would happen. I feel like that if that happens there, and that could cause Eastern Washington state people to want to break away and join Idaho, for instance, and leave Washington to just the coastal areas. And then Eastern Oregon would probably follow suit, making the Idaho, Oregon, and Washington state one of the biggest in the West. So these are things that could happen in a prelude to civil war. They could happen instead of a civil war, or they could happen in conjunction with a civil war. So we've got these Hunger Games-esque freaks of nature on CNN mocking all of us Southerners. We've got Virginia potentially being diminished and West Virginia growing as a bigger constitutional free state. We have the potential of Idaho becoming a mega state. What do you think about peaceful separation, letting them have the cities? And I understand that's going to put some people in a tight spot. Like if they wanted to, let's say that they didn't agree with the secession movement and their county decided to join another state, they'd kind of find themselves behind the enemy lines to a certain degree. So Let's look at some of the comments and talk a little bit about what I'm talking about. I'm kind of still getting the hang of how to do these live streams. I'm pretty new to it. So we got somebody from Idaho. Yeah, Idaho. The only problem I have with Idaho is there's a homesteader that seems to be targeted. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, and they won't let him build his tiny home. They won't let him do his off-grid living, and they're trying to control him. And it's like, it wouldn't surprise me to hear that he was raided and his family killed or something eventually because of the way. I mean, if his live streams and his videos on YouTube, I forget his name, but he's a homesteader in Idaho. That's the only problem. That's my only question mark with Idaho is, are they being authoritative about the environment and stuff in the outback there? They certainly are to him. Like, they got all these rules and they won't let him play. Yeah, like a Ruby Ridge kind of thing. There's so much to the Ruby Ridge thing. I really can't believe that this Civil War didn't happen back in the 90s. That we came so close then. People don't realize now. I don't think the younger generation realizes how close we were to Civil War then. But I'm better prepared than I ever was then. But I don't have the youth I used to have. But I probably was stupid when I got myself killed in the first day. If it had gone down back then. So someone's saying that the Idaho governor is trying to import a bunch of refugees. Are we talking like Somalis? Are we talking about South American refugees? Wait, Lisa doesn't know what happened in the 90s? So I guess for a lot of people, it started in the 80s with gun control, because there was this war on crack, war on drugs, and a lot of the drug cartels and gangs were arming themselves with rifles. And back then it was more the submachine gun or the machine pistol that was being used when they could get their hands on it. And a lot of people in those gangs were cutting off shotguns, and they were filing off Sears and making automatic weapons. And so the ATF got grabby, and then there was also this kind of residual war against skinheads that were kind of come out of the 1970s war on the KKK. And so the feds were trying to go after white separatist groups in places like Idaho. And so in the midst of this, and this is why I want to make a point here, and y'all can help me spread this, that even if some of these people on the far right are what you call a racist, they're not white supremacists. I don't think there's any white supremacists left in the world. How can you watch Michael Jordan dunk and think you're supremacist? How can you watch Herbie Hancock play the piano and think you're supremacist, right? How can you watch Eddie Murphy deliver stand-up comedy and think you're supremacist? No, I think those people are more white separatist. They want to live separately. And there was that movement in the 80s to be white separatists. So a guy named, this is Ruby Ridge, so his name is Randy Weaver. A guy named Randy Weaver, not really so much a racist as much as he saw his culture disappearing, and he saw urban hip-hop culture taking over, and he and his family just wanted to separate themselves, and they were waiting for Jesus to come back, that kind of folk, So they wanted to go out and live off the land, and we buy this property out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, and their nearest neighbor just happens to be a white supremacist compound. Like, when I say nearest neighbor, I mean like 15 miles away, right? And they're often frequenting in the same town, and some of the churches might have people that are part of this whole thing. And so the feds, the ATF, send in undercover agents, and they trick Randy Weaver. They almost coerce Randy Weaver into selling them these shotguns that he was selling shotguns anyway, totally legally. He's just rotating his gun collection, and he'd make a few bucks selling them here and there. It's legal. I used to do the same sort of thing, gun shows, that kind of stuff. And these two federal agents coerce him into cutting off a shotgun for him, so it was like an inch or two under the limit, right? Making an illegal shotgun. So then they take this and they go, okay, we got you on the illegal shotgun. They arrest him, and they tell him, look, you help us with, and go undercover against this white supremacist compound, this white separatist compound, skinheads, and we'll forget about the shotgun thing. So they want to turn him into a confidential informant, and he refuses, and he just locks himself away on his little farm up in the middle of nowhere. And so then the next thing that happens is the police decide the feds decide they're gonna dig him out. So they send U.S. Marshals up there, and they're all dressed in camouflage, and they're all blacked out, and they're snipers, and they surround him, and he has no idea he's being surrounded, right? So there's this sniper, this U.S. Marshal, up in a tree. Randy Weaver, his buddy, and his 14-year-old son, Randy Weaver's 14-year-old son, and their dog, just go on a walk. Well, the dog takes off and is telling them there's something in the woods. So they think maybe they got a grizzly, they think maybe they got a mountain lion, and they go out there, and the dog basically gives away the position of this U.S. Marshal. And so the U.S. Marshal shoots the dog. The 14-year-old boy sees the man in the tree shoot his dog, and he says, well, you SOB, and the kid's got a 12-gauge shotgun with birdshot in it. So he raises the gun up and shoots the man that shoots his dog. And the man, of course, the U.S. Marshal gets hit by the birdshot, but it's not fatal, and it's not, I mean, he only gets peppered. And so he shoots the boy and kills him. And of course now the friend and the dad are there, and the friend is carrying a pistol. He draws his pistol on the sniper, and the sniper shoots the friend too. And the dad, Randy Weaver, grabs the friend and drags him back to the house. And later on, they sneak out and get the body of the child, of the boy. And then a multi-week standoff starts where they're surrounded and besieged, and militias come from all over the country to support them. But they can't really get close because the government's got the perimeter and it's all very rural, and there's only one road in and one road out, and they control it. And ultimately, Randy Weaver gives himself up. I don't believe Randy Weaver was found guilty of any. Oh, there's another section. Randy's wife, Vicky, they have a little bitty baby, like a 6-month or 4-month-old baby. And at one point, Randy leaves the house, and the sniper takes a shot at Randy. And the wife steps out on the porch with the baby in her arms, and a U.S. Marshal sniper blows her head off, and she falls to the ground with the baby still in her arms. So they murdered his son, murdered his wife. I think the best friend lived. He was never found guilty of anything. And the sniper that murdered his wife in cold blood was never dealt with, I don't even think he was fired. And I think that he played a role in the next story, which is Waco, which I'll save for another video. But just to let you know that in response to these ATF attacks on rural prepper families, the militia was formed to begin with. There really wasn't a militia to speak of until the 90s. So when you see all of these militias show up at Virginia, it's because we've been doing this now for my entire life, that the militia has been forming and building and growing in every state. We're still answering the tyranny that happened at Waco and Ruby Ridge, and there could have been much more had we not been distracted by 9/11. Also, the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City shut me down as a militia person. I no longer wanted to participate if killing children was on the agenda. And I know that Timothy McVeigh did not represent the whole militia movement, but I was led to believe that he did. And so all that you're seeing now is it was just stopped for a while we dealt with 9/11 and this unending war in the Middle East. And so here we find ourselves now with our overlords mocking us from their ivory towers, calling us rubes and idiots. And we gather in armed number, in a warning to an unconstitutional, tyrannical governor that he need not continue with this agenda to try to take the guns away from the people of Virginia, and he ignores us. You're right, they do want us to fight each other, except we're not fighting each other. It's us against them. Let's get that straight. If America splits in half, it isn't American against American. It's American against communists. It's us against them. It is a war for survival. And I'm not calling for it as much as I'm sick and tired of being mocked. I'm sick and tired of being ignored. I'm sick and tired of our president being dragged through the mud. And I think we may have had our last election as the United States of America when we elected Donald Trump. I don't see us coming out of this. It's a tailspin. I've been calling it for 2.5 years. It's getting to the point of absurdity now. It's so clear that they're making this happen. But And, and maybe there's a big conspiracy as to why, but, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to tolerate the tyranny. And that's how I think so many of us feel. And so whatever that brings, it brings. But what we can't do is just roll over and let them have our country. We can't just roll over and let these tender-footed wine babies sit up in their ivory towers and make fun of us and pass tyrannical laws to try to drive us into some kind of submissive role so that we grow the food and they stand on our necks and they live off the fat of the land and the sweat of our brow. That this is not something I think Americans are going to tolerate. We don't mind working for rich, powerful men because they're slugging it out with us. Guys like Donald Trump, he built his empire off the sweat of our brow and his own, right? That he but these entitled titty babies, I'm sorry, excuse my French, but that's what the old Marine would call them, titty babies. They're still on the baba. They ain't grown up. They haven't cut the apron strings with their mamas yet, right? And they're wanting to tell the rest of us how to live. One of the biggest problems I got with Mr. Buttigieg, what is he, 12? This big problem I got with Shapiro. What are you, 19? Are you old enough to drink now? It used to be the world was run by wise men. Who put this bartender from New York in charge of our government over there? Ocasio-Cortez. That girl should still be figuring out how to make her car payments. What is she doing trying to run our country? What's wrong with these people? I'm sorry. I think I heard my microphone crack. I was getting a little loud. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Enough for my rant. There is nothing more American than resisting tyranny. Occasional cortex. That's a good one. I have to remember that one. Yes, I often film in Walmart parking lot. I also wanted you to see the gas price. If you can see right there, it's $1.97 here in Texas. I think that has to do with Trump smacking some people over there in Iran and getting them all settled in, and OPEC is behaving properly and our gas prices are going down. But hey, what do I know? Thanks, Christopher. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better today. I'm 85%. It's $1.96 over on the interstate, actually. I think I started a new one. No one's ever heard somebody call them titty babies? When my old man was being exceptionally mean to me, and I would cry, because I have this crying thing, and so I was little, I'd cry, and he'd go, "Wah! Look at you crying, little titty baby. Get up off the ground, stop crying, act like a man. Wah!" 256 in New Jersey, huh? Yeah, I think I was paying $230 on the way out there to Virginia. Yeah, $230, Lisa says, in Virginia. Yep, I was just there. It says in the Bible that Antichrist will make peace here. I think maybe you could say Middle East peace, but from my perspective on the eschatology, America dies in a bloody civil war. So you got a front row seat. What's up, Steven? Good to see you, brother. Per liter, $1.50 per liter in Dublin, but I don't know, is that a euro? Thank you. Be good to each other. I appreciate that. Yeah, the corporate, well, I don't know. Okay, so you're right. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's back up here. Sans Peru says the Democrats are fighting each other right now, communists versus corporate moderates. Okay, so I would say that I actually agree with that statement. But really it's globalist against anarchist. So typically the people that in a communist takeover, the people that initially do the communist takeover are extreme left radicals, okay? Underlying the extreme left radicals are these corporate globalist kind of people that are in it for the money. So you could say that the communist wing of the Democratic Party is kind of like useful idiots. They're going to employ them to do the dirty work. Those are also the very first people, once they've dealt with the patriots, those are the very first people that the communist overlords, the globalists, when they take over, will eliminate. So these guys, these little peons, they're going to potentially, their goal is to get Bernie Sanders elected, but Bernie Sanders is in the pocket of big money. Bernie Sanders, just look into his wife and the university. Okay, look at the things that he's said in the past. That he's following a communist takeover script that's worked, for the last 100 years or better. And so Bernie Sanders, if he were to get their goal and he were to get elected, and let's say they burned cities and they would make death squads and make them these Antifa people. And as soon as they were done with them, they would turn the death squads on them. They would put them in the gulags. That's the way it always happens. I don't know why the useful idiots in the script haven't read the script. You know why? Because every anarchist that works with a communist to overthrow a government thinks that they can put in some kind of anarchist sort of no rules, kind of anything goes, strongest person survives kind of world. But the communists are hyper control. They see, anarchist could almost be called libertarians in a way, because an anarchist doesn't want any government. They don't want anybody telling them what to do. Strongest man wins the fight. If you have to band up together, they kind of want not Hunger Games, what's the other one? The Walking Dead kind of world, And so when they get control, they think they're going to be able to control the corporate globalist communist, who really just want to put everybody into economic slavery, sit on the top and suck the cream off the top, and build, more war machines to take over the rest of the world. It's very oddly sick. But I've been studying this since infancy. So there you have it. Let's see what else we were talking about here. Thanks. Be good to each other. I surely appreciate the help. I thank you all so much for the help you've been giving me. I need it. I've been missing too much work. Anarchy is extreme right wing. It's, what it is? It's left wing that goes all the way around like a circle and almost meets the right wing. I don't think they quite meet. Right, there is this whole play on words between fascist. That's why I didn't use fascist, and I used communist, but I actually changed communist to globalist in my little rant there, and I called what other people would call communist anarchists. But it's the spirit of control. It comes in every flavor. I don't want a far right wing spirit of control either. I remember the remnants of the right wing kind of culture, this Victorian culture. Well, me and my sister were just talking about how, excuse me, the wars she had with our parents in the 60s and early 70s on her clothing and her dress, and how, if you were perceived a certain way, you were shunned in the community. And I don't want to see that either. I don't know. I kind of like the 80s. The 80s were pretty cool, except for some of the worst things that happened in the 80s. Take out the bad stuff out of the 80s, update the wardrobe, and I'm good. That's what I mean when I mean make America great again. The Reagan era. Sorry, didn't mean to make you late. You saw it here. Made him or her late for work. Yeah, I'm disagreeing with you, Michael, but really it's just semantics on the far left and the far right. But please don't tell me not true, because this is all conjecture. This is not really a science. This is why none of us can agree on it, because it is a matter of personal perspective. But I would say that I would divide it in quadrants rather than seeing as a left and a right. That's two-dimensional. Let's put it, make a divider down the middle, and we'll say everything to the left is communist versus free market. So we could say everything to the left is socialism, everything to the right is communism. Okay, is capitalism. Socialism versus capitalism, and then we have libertarianism down here, and we have control, or what's another word for opposite of libertarian would be tyranny or oppression. All right, so you've got those that you could fit anywhere in this quadrant. So I would be very much libertarian, right? Or libertarians down here, controls on top. I'm very much libertarian, slightly to the right. Okay. There are those that are libertarian, but yet they're socialist. And you don't think that can go together, right? But it actually does. So an example of that might be a socialist government where everyone is taxed right off the top by 50% of their um, income. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of laws concerning behavior and decorum. And, people can own guns, prostitution is legal, all the drugs are free, and all you got to do is give your money to the government, who has these government programs that you can or don't have to participate in. There's never been a government like that. That's what Bernie Sanders people want. And they're willing to kill 10 million people and make it happen. But every time those people try to do something, the left communist, the socialist control freaks, you end up getting Stalinism, where everything is regimented, everything is controlled by the government. There are rules about what you can say, what you can think. Nobody's got any guns. So when you look at it that way, don't look at it like a left-right, look at it like quadrants, that you can have people. I don't want people who are control freaks up here in the high control end that are just as bad as Mao or just as bad as Stalin, but they're trying to make people go to church on Sunday. This is one of the Seventh-day Adventist conspiracy theories for forever, is that they're going to force all the Seventh-day Adventists to go to church on Sunday, make church mandatory, for everyone. And, if you don't go to church, or, if you don't pay your tithes, they come to your house and beat you up and take it. So, I mean, there's quadrants here. It's not really just left and right. It's the full spectrum of human behavior. Basic socialism is okay. I don't know. Here's the thing. When you take the center, when you mix socialism, okay, and the free market system, when you mix, hang on, I got emails coming in. When you mix a little bit of control and a whole lot of freedom, you get America in the 80s, where there's a safety net for people in the form of Social Security, unemployment. Healthcare is private, but at the time it was affordable, and we had a good free market economy, and we were able to contribute. And we also contributed through social outlets like church and giving to charities. People donated to what used to be good organizations, like they slipped my mind. It starts with a U, but these were nonprofits that help people not just in America but around the world. So it's not a choice of one of those four options. It's not a choice of totalitarian right free market system. It's not a choice of total libertarianism. I mean, that combination was working for America for about 75 to 100 years. And you might say, when we say make America great again, that's the time period I think of. The time between 1965 and 1990. And that, there was a free market, but at the same time, there were social programs that helped people. Thanks, Blazing Blazer. I appreciate my brother. And, but I just don't know that we're ever going to get back to that, because the communists have decided they're taking over our country. That's the fly in the ointment. That's what made America stop working again, is when the Weather Underground and these, I forget the guy's name, but the guy that wrote Rules for Radicals, these communists embedded in our own universities were allowed to indoctrinate our young and turn them against us, Cambodia style. So, this is Pol Pot and Cambodia all over again on a much huge scale, because you could fit Cambodia in the panhandle of Texas. Thanks, Jane. I appreciate you. And yeah, Saul Alinsky. Thank you, everybody. And, but yeah, so, that's what caused America to turn hard left. It's what caused the people on the right to get even more protective of their rights, and it's what's led us to this point. And our choice is succumb to the communist takeover or fight them and banish them. And that's just where we're at. I'm not calling for a civil war as much as I'm saying I'd be shocked if we could avoid one at this point, and they clearly want one. And I think we may have to give them the civil war they're pushing for, because if we don't, they're just going to take over. It's kind of like someone showed up at your house and they have a gun on, and they say, hey, I'm going to come in and hang out in your living room. And you're like, no, thanks. I don't think you should. And they're like, but, I'm going to anyway. And you can decide then whether you're going to scuffle with them or you're going to let them kind of push you out of the way and come in and sit in your living room. And then you're going to be like, hey, you need to go home. You don't live here. Why are you in my house? And they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to stay for supper. And, at some point, you have to decide when you're going to use physical action to remove this person from your house and make them go back to where they came from, right? Or do you just let them move in and eventually push you out into the garage, and now you live outside and they have your house? And this is the analogy of the communists that have slowly taken over our country through the universities. And, when are we going to shove them? When are we going to throw them down, put an extension cord around their ankles, drag them out to the front of the house and kick them to the curb? When is that going to happen? Because, if we don't, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to move in until it's us. They're putting an extension cord around our ankles, rolling us out the front door of our own country and kicking us to the curb. So, interesting times to be alive. Thanks, Be Good. I appreciate that. I thought that was a pretty good analogy too. Digging this live stream. I find it so hard to talk about the Don Lemon thing. I mean, because I struggle with my own religion. You remember that term, I'm losing my religion? That means you're losing your cool, you're losing your calm, you're losing your zen, right? And he makes me like that. I can't, if he accidentally ends up on my television, I almost have a conniption fit to get him off of there. And, I see CNN as the communist news network. They are the enemy of the state. And these people mocking me makes me so fighting mad. I'm telling you, if I could reach in there and snatch him out of there by his ears, I would. What kind of man? Think about what he did to that bartender. If you don't know the story, Don Lemon, he's gay. And so his idea of how to hit on another man, and this was a straight bartender who was an attractive man, is, and if you have children, please don't let them listen to this. And, you may want to stick your fingers in your ear and go la, 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 if you don't want to hear something. But this Don Lemon, this disgusting excuse for a human being, reaches down his pants, gets his own scent from his crotch, I'm trying to be nice here, on his fingers, and he rubs it in this man's face and asks him if he likes male genitalia. Okay, but you just fill in the lines. It absolutely disgusting. Right? And this guy's still on the air. Can you imagine if a Tucker Carlson did that to a woman? If a Tucker Carlson touched himself and rubbed his fingers on a woman's face and said, "You like that?" And he would still be on air? I don't think so. I think he would probably be jailed. Right? But Don Lemon can do this to another man. What kind of piece of crap is this guy? And now for him to sit up there and mock my southern accent. You know what? If this was 100 years ago, I wouldn't be satisfied until Don Lemon and I had faced each other in a duel in a field somewhere near the CNN headquarters, wherever that is. I don't know. I just saw Virginia field. I guess because in D.C. in the old days, when the leaders of our country would have it out with each other, they'd go over to the Virginia line in a field somewhere and duel each other. I'm so infuriated, and I'm not alone. For somebody of that ilk to sit on his high horse and act like he is better than me when he would do that kind of thing to another human being, it's the ultimate bully move. What he did to that guy is the ultimate bully move. I just want to meet him out behind the ag barn and teach him some freaking lessons. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm coming back. Come down. Calm down. Zen. Find my center. All that. So, yeah, I just don't understand their culture. They don't understand us. We have got to separate. At this point, the only Christian thing to do is to separate. If you want to get down to, if you want to pull pacifism and pull the pacifism card and go, okay, some character that watches the channel, I guess, sent me some kind of, if you're a prophet and you're proclaiming things from the mouth of God and proclaiming that you are God, that you are speaking for God directly to me, especially if it's this long written out script, you're going to get nothing but disdain from me. I do not respect that office you've given yourself as a prophet. I just don't. But, you know, to his defense, it was a non-violent plea, and it was a condemnation of me to go to Virginia. He was condemning me to go from going to Virginia. And thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. And, you know, claiming that I was somehow wrong for going to Virginia and standing with my Virginian friends there, even though it was non-violent. He accused me in this prophetic word of being violent by showing up there in a non-violent way. That's a bit of a hypocrisy there. But at any rate, if you want to go down the peace road and not the war road, which honestly, I want to go down the peace road. I do. I don't think it's possible. I don't think they're going to let us, right? I don't think peaceful secession, I don't think peaceful separation will be allowed by the left. Communism of the ilk that's coming at us is about control. They want to control you. They want to stand on you with their foot on their chest, on your chest. So they are never going to allow us to peacefully separate. But morally, religiously, I have to ask for that first. I cannot just march down the road to war without asking first, may we just get away from each other? May we just separate? Do we have to coexist in the same space? Can we draw a line and you go to your corner and we go to ours, and we don't have to starve our children, we don't have to burn our fields, we don't have to blow up buildings, we don't have to kill each other. We can skip all of this historic madness of blood and gore and tragedy and horridness. Can we just skip all that and peacefully separate? You know, I am for that peaceful separation. I just don't believe they're going to go for it. I think they just can't do it. But at the same time, you know, I can't call myself a Christian without first asking, can we just walk away? You know, but I'm not going to let you come into my house, you know, take up residence in my favorite chair, eat my food, and push me out onto the curb. It just isn't going to happen that way. But you're more than welcome to move in next door if you can afford the neighborhood, and I'll leave you alone and you leave me alone. You know, nice fences make for great neighbors. It does seem like they are crazy with a death wish. I'll leave the rest of the hyperbole out. Oh, Jack Kennedy. I don't know. You want me to relax. Well, as much as I'd like to relax right now, anytime someone tells me to relax and there's a task on the table, it's one reason why I've been called intense, because I will work you to death when I have a goal in mind, like the guy who drove all night to get to Virginia and drove all night to get back. You know, because when someone says relax, Sage, I always hear the old Marine. Whenever I would relax and go, I think I'm going to take a break, he just couldn't help himself. He would say, a little rest, a little folding of the hands, and then their destruction cometh, or something like that. It was a scripture from the Old Testament, I think. I need to go look it up. But I just hear that in my head, you know. No, this isn't time to relax, you know. It's time that we do something before this spins completely out of control. You know, we have to all band together. I'm very much in favor of Virginia leaving of those counties, those sanctuary Second Amendment counties, seceding and joining Virginia, West Virginia rather. The problem is I think that the Congress of Virginia might have to approve it. So this would cause, they would have to violate their own constitution to go to West Virginia. But there's people now that are talking about that it's not too late for Virginia counties to leave and join West Virginia, just like they did in the previous Civil War. So anyway, what do you guys think? Are we onto something with this secession movement? Is peaceful separation the way to go, or do you think they'll not let us do it? Okay, so funny, that Spotsylvania, they almost called, the name of West Virginia was almost Sylvania. Just a little side note, that was one of the names they almost called West Virginia Sylvania instead of West Virginia. Okay, so the separation of the military. Okay, so that, Jack, man, once again, brother, that is a serious question. What happens to the nukes? What happens to, because if we separate, we have all the nukes. We being the country folk, because they don't put them in the city, right? They don't put the Air Force bases right in town, except in Fort Worth. But this is Texas, so all of Texas is going to be, we're going to separate unto ourselves more than likely. And I've always thought, because secession and Texas are synonymous. And so I always thought if Texas secedes from the Union, that if it's inside Texas, it's ours. And, you can hand over the keys or we can pry them out of your dead hand. And I think that's probably what will happen. And there may be some skirmishes like the battle at Fort Sumter, right? For control of that fort. That there may be battles like that to control certain elements of the military. That even if peaceful separation happened, I don't know that it would happen when it comes to the military. It's going so fast. Do you believe they will be able to interfere with the election to prevent Trump? Okay, so this leads me to something else that I'm hearing. And there's some other things we need to talk about. I mean, I've been sick, so I got some ground to cover here. And so, wait, what were you saying? Oh, interference in the election. So many people think the reason that they're having a problem in Virginia to begin with is that there was interference in the Virginia election. And some people are saying that it was voter fraud along with manipulation of electronic voting machines. In the John Titor timeline, if you're a fan of this channel, you know that there's this concept that a time traveler told us this was all going to happen. And that time traveler said that the problem arose from tampering with electronic voter machines and a president that was considered to be non-legitimate. So we don't know whether Trump will win in 2020. They will claim that Trump's election was because of fraud, and he's the president that is seen as being non-legitimate, or whether somebody like a Bernie Sanders gets elected through fraud, and we claim he's an illegitimate president, and that's what triggers the open war. But apparently, according to Titor, there's going to be an open war. I've got to work towards the secession movement first, because if they'll just let us walk away, then we got God on our side, right? If they don't just let us walk away, if we ask to just be dismissed, can we just be dismissed from this thing you created, and you guys have your area and we have ours? And if they don't let us and they come for us, then we have God on our side. We are righteously defending ourselves because we tried peace first. I mean, you have to choose peace first if you want God on your side. That's my opinion. And it's important that God be on my side. I would much rather go into open civil war. If I have to go into open civil war, I would love to go into open civil war with Trump as president. We have he's a character equal to an Abraham Lincoln, and if we had any chance of winning, it'd be nice if the head guy was at least on our side. The underdog, the rebel cause, the people who aren't holding the White House when the fighting starts, they're at a disadvantage. And it's probably more than any other reason, in my opinion, why the South lost. If they could have elected a Southern president and then dealt with the culture war, they might have been able to keep their, not that I'm on their side at all, but they might have had a chance of winning. But once again, you got to have God on your side, and they did not have God on their side because of slavery, if you ask me. That's why if you lose a war, it's because God wasn't on your side. If you win a war, it's because God was on your side. That's my opinion. When it's over, can we deport the commie-crats? Okay, so let's talk about the last Civil War. When the last Civil War was over, the North had the opportunity to execute every insurrectionist. They had the lawful power under the Constitution as it is written still. I mean, they could have executed everyone who raised up arms against the North. And Abraham Lincoln chose clemency instead. And in fact, the people that wanted to punish the South more are the people responsible for impeaching Johnson, the only president that's been successfully impeached. Okay, um, and I think he was impeached and removed. But Andrew Johnson wanted mercy for the South, and they had to get him out of there because they wanted to punish the South. So there is going to be this fuss, whoever wins. One side will want to take us all out and shoot us and hang everybody and put our kids in slavery and just be total tyrants. And other people want to offer Americans a chance to reform. So, but communists aren't going to offer that to us. If they win, they're going to follow the communist route, which is to put everybody in re-education camps and basically force you at the point of a bayonet to submit and prove your submission, and then probably kill you anyway. That's kind of the way communists do things. So, would it follow the tradition that we set in place from the last Civil War, where you offer clemency, that even the leaders of the rebellion in the South were not prosecuted after the war, but were allowed to go home to their farms? That's a big question. Yes, Vinny, I'm doing so much better. Y'all make sure and go out to 2ARAC and check out his channel. He has some stuff that he has on there that was from Virginia that didn't come out on my feed. Other side stuff going on. He was filming too. Derek, I'm glad I can make you smile and laugh. That makes my day worth having. Makes my day worth doing. Yeah, I agree. That's what I was saying. Thank you for agreeing with me, Sans Peru. We're kind of on the same page, it seems like, some of the stuff. Well, what else did I have on there? We talked about Virginia. We talked about Don Lemon. This epidemic. Let's talk about the pandemic. It's being underreported. Okay, if you don't follow the pandemic hour by hour, you may miss it and get exposed to this flu that's killing people. And it's really a big deal. If you haven't been watching the flu, is it Corona? That's the beer, right? Anyway, let's just call it this Chinese flu, because that's what people are going to call it. They're going to drop the name, and pretty soon it's just going to be the Chinese flu, like the Spanish flu of 1919. The Spanish flu was devastating. Even there were still people alive when I was a little boy who survived that flu. There's people that lost family members of that flu that I knew that were old people when I was young. And so this is pretty bad. It has the same death rate, which I think they're saying is 2.5%, which is the same as the Spanish influenza. And, we have airplanes now. In 1917, people weren't flying to the four corners of the earth. And this is one of the things that people have always feared about a pandemic, is that it would get on airplanes and it would spread that way. And so we have it now in Washington State. We have 5 cases or more in the LA region of California. We have a couple of cases in Chicago. We may have a case in Dallas. We're not sure yet whether the case in Dallas is true or not, but I'm understanding they're talking about shutting down one of our college campuses here in Dallas, Baylor University, because someone traveled to that region of China and came back to Dallas. And they announced that they may start, they're probably going to start checking people coming in from all areas into DFW now, and making everybody who's coming from out of country, all the international flights, get scanned for fever. But the problem with this strain is that, and this hasn't been proven, because we're at the very beginning of this. We might also call this the snake virus, because this thing went from bats to snakes to human. And I've heard of bird flus, but I never heard of a snake flu. It's the snake flu. I had a really bad flu with projectile vomiting, the double bucket drill flu that just Well, I thought I was going to die. It was the worst case of the vomiting flu I ever had years ago, and we nicknamed it the dragon flu. Maybe they're going to start calling this the dragon flu. Coronavirus. It is corona. That's going to hurt the beer business, don't you think? Nobody wants corona now. Yes, I'm hearing that this might have been a bioweapon that was accidentally released. And this is why it came from China, because that's where the lab was. And they basically bioweaponed themselves, and now it's spreading to the rest of the country. And I think that might very well be true. I really think it's a distinct possibility. It was inevitable that something like that was going to happen. And you think it was an intentional release? Well, I don't know why the Chinese would release it on themselves. If it's an intentional release on the Chinese, then we might have done it. Or the Russians might have done it. Reptilian virus. Don't. So I wonder, well, I won't even go there. Smuggled out of a level 4 lab in Canada by Chinese scientists. Is this InfoWars information? Because I have heard that, but only on InfoWars, and it's undisclosed inside sources. The health ranger, Mike, what's his name? I don't really trust a thing that guy says. I have just caught him being wrong more than he's right. Everything's the end of the world with him. And I was, I stood back on this virus thing and watched it, and I was like, oh yeah, SARS was supposed to get us, Ebola was supposed to get us. But I'm watching this thing. It's, well, to quote AJ over at InfoWars, when you look at the map and you see the little red dot starting to connect, and it's starting to look like a slide from one of the outbreak movies from the 90s, one of the pandemic movies. You can just see the red spreading, and before long you'll be able to do that fast motion thing and see it spreading across the entire country, the entire world. So which kind of brings me full circle around to prepping. So what am I out doing today? I'm going to take the little bit of money I have and try to put it forward in food. My preps got mainly left in Oregon. I left them for my family. I took my lightweight bug out preps, which included some dehydrated mountain home meals, in a couple of 5-gallon buckets, just well, I could fit in the car with a lot of my other junk. Everything that came with me from Oregon had to fit in 3 carloads. My 2 trips and the one my son came out with me. And so, my family in Oregon has a pretty good, food supply, but they also run a care home, so they have clients that they have to provide for too. And so I made sure there was plenty of food there. They used some of it after I left. I won't get into why, but some financial issues came up and they had to use some of it. But so today I'm just kind of hitting my pantry up a little bit because my sister and her kid live hand to mouth, and I probably have enough food maybe to outlast, like a 6-week lockdown. I could probably do a 6-week lockdown. It would be skinny. I'd be eating a lot of rice and bouillon, but but I thought I'd pick up some top ramen and some canned soup and some stuff and just buffer up the pantry a little bit as best I can. So if y'all want to contribute through Super Chat and help me get some of my preps back so I have the ability to stay home, because here's the thing. If you can't stay home and you have to go to the store, you're putting yourself at risk. If they lock you down in your house because of the pandemic and you're not allowed to go out, they don't really care if you get hungry. And the food distribution thing is probably something that won't even happen in the pandemic. Like the government going to rescue you? No, they're going to make sure you can't leave the house. They're going to shut down all the stores, and they're not going to distribute anything. And you're going to have what you have, because they are more concerned with this controlling the virus than they are with people eating. So, you could definitely, if I was you, and I had any emergency fund at all financially, at this point, I'd probably try to convert it to some long-term storage food. But beware, if you're trying to buy long-term storage food from companies like Mountain House and Mountain Home and Patriot Pantry and people like that, they're being sold out because institutions along the West Coast are buying this stuff up. And this is, I'm being told this. I haven't gone to the website and tried to buy any. Maybe you could do a little research for me. Go to the websites and see if they're back ordered. But it's looking more and more they're being back ordered by West Coast institutions who are buying this stuff just in case. So they didn't say which, and this is scuttlebutt. So, but it makes sense if they're worried about it hitting the West Coast, since more people fly into the West Coast first. They've set down there, changed planes, whatever, that they're going to have the hardest time along the West Coast. That's where we're seeing most of the cases right now. And so it could be that they're putting this food up. The ability to shelter in place is extremely important. And yeah, Amazon is running out of these fiber masks. That's why, and you guys need to hear this, if you have any kind of gas mask, if you bought the gas mask for, in case we get dirty bombed or whatever, that these regular gas masks that everyone has, the Army surplus, mine came from Israeli civilians. They're ABC or NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical. So you can wear a regular gas mask. Just know the filters are only good for like 4 hours under normal breathing conditions. So if you only have one filter, you might try to find some more of those. Those will dry up soon too, the replacement filters. And I think I only brought 2. I left most of my gas mask and all my filters back over there at home. Hey, if my kids are watching this, I don't think they watch anymore. Another story. God help us all. But if you're watching this, know your stuff. It's out there. All you need is out there. It's right where I left it. Unless you guys moved it, then that's on you. What's the best way to prep for water if you don't have a well? Well, you're talking to a guy who doesn't have a well, and I'm not hooked up to any kind of plumbing. And this is one reason why I wouldn't want to wrestle with me right now. It would be like wrestling a bear, because I haul these, as you can see, I got a couple in the back seat here, these 7-gallon water cubes. And I can toss them around like they're paperweights nowadays. It wasn't that easy when I started. But every drop of water I use, I carry in these buckets. And I bathe in filtered, purified water. It's not because I want to, it's because I don't have a source to buy water. I found the cheapest place to buy it, and I use it for everything. I use an RV pump to pump the water through my house and into my hot water heater and everything. And there's a spigot that screws onto the top of these jugs. So I just swap a jug out. I can have a shower as long as I want, as long as it only uses 7 gallons of water. Which is actually a pretty decent shower. And most of the time I use more like 4 gallons for a shower. And so, but what would I do not having a well? Well, right there adjacent to my property is a stock tank, and it's muddy water. But I have a water filter, and 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So I have 2 of the, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of them. They're the 1995 water filters. They're called the Sawyer Mini. I have 2 Sawyer Mini water filters. This will filter a mud puddle, okay? It will get out all of the stuff that'll make you sick. It doesn't cover viruses, but I don't think this is a waterborne virus. I don't think it's going to get in the water supply. This is a human-to-human, aerosolized, airborne. Even if you have to even wear eye protection, because something could get in your eye from another person that's got it, and you can get it. You can touch something and touch your eye. That's how virulent this stuff is. But at this point, I don't think it could survive with all of the bacteria that's in a natural surface water. So your ability to successfully filter water from some kind of natural source, if you got to carry it from a creek or a pond or a city fountain, you got to have water. If you don't have water, then the only way to make water is a solar still, and that's another video. The Sawyer squeeze, I got problems with. It's unreliable. First of all, the squeezing mechanism is you want to wear your hand out real fast, right? And it's not really usable, and also it tends to break. So not a fan of the Sawyer squeeze, but the Sawyer Mini uses, you can use 2-liter bottles and pressurize it and squeeze the 2-liter bottles to force through the filter and make filtering easier. So you squeeze a 2-liter bottle instead of squeezing the little tuka thing on the Sawyer squeeze. But the Sawyer Mini has been proven. The Sawyer Mini has changed the lives of millions of people in Africa that part of the project of Sawyer Mini was when you buy Sawyer Mini, a certain amount of money was given to these projects that sent them to Africa, where people were drinking muddy water and getting dysentery and dying of cholera, and they had all these health problems. And so they started distributing these and teaching people how to use them, and it turned around the cholera epidemic in certain parts of Africa. A drop of bleach will purify water. That's correct. It doesn't do much to improve the taste, flavor, or any the usefulness of it. It's bleach water is yucky. Muddy bleach water. I'd rather drink it filtered. Yes, you can let gravity filter it the same way. You can work that out. There's lots of ways to employ a Sawyer Mini. A lot of guys hook it into their mouth, the little bite tube that they use for their camelbacks in their bug out gear. You know, if you've got a water carrier system, that you can screw the Sawyer Mini in line with the, you just cut your tube and hook it over the two ends, and then, you know, you're good to go with a hose clamp, a couple of hose clamps. Borax. Borax will purify water? That, Sean, I got to look into that. I have not heard that. I know borax kills all kinds of critters. It's a great natural insecticide, and it's what I use to fight ants. UV light kills all germs. That's another problem with this virus in particular, because, you know, that's actually true. In previous flu seasons, you know, they give you this stuff you're supposed to wipe your shopping cart down with. Ooh, I'm getting warm. I'm going to have to open a window. They give you these wipes, but some news reporter went out and did a virus and bacteria test on shopping carts that were left out in the shopping corral. And the sunlight actually killed all of the germs, and there was no reason really to wipe down your hand things there if they'd been outside and got any sunlight at all, right? But one of the problems with this particular strain of the coronavirus is that it lasts for a long time outside the body. Most viruses, the air, UV, it all kills them, right? But this one hangs on for a while, to the point where they're concerned whether Chinese products that are being shipped over here quickly might still have the virus on the product. Don't. Glenn Beck is a snowflake. I think you're missing the point on Glenn Beck. You're missing the point on Glenn Beck, because I feel the same way. It's like the straw. It's the final insult. It's like if you were taking crap from somebody, and they were calling you names, and they were insulting your mother, and they were, you know, getting in your face, and you were holding your wrath, and then they spit right in your face. Bam! That's the thing that sets you off, right? It wasn't the spitting. If they'd started with the spitting, you might have went, hey, dude, what was that? Right? But insult to injury. Ever hear that saying? Insult to injury. Glenn Beck, in saying what he said, isn't a snowflake at all. I think he's captured the feeling of us. There's us and them. And they have injured us, and now they have spit in our face. They've added insult to injury. And this is why Glenn Beck's at the end of his rope, and so am I. Salt in the wound, yeah. Caden and water purifier tablets. So water purification tablets serve a place in bug out and in emergency preparedness, but you don't want to use chemically treated water, even bleach treated water, for long periods of time. It will tear up your body. It will destroy your organs. It's great. It's fine in small doses, but the chemical itself will hurt you in the long term. You can't go on and on forever drinking water that's purified with chemicals. So you need to filter water, you need to boil water, and chemical treatment is not really a long-term solution, but more of a short-term solution. And especially if you're bugging out, I'd drop a couple of tabs of that stuff in a canteen and shake it up. You betcha. I've done that, and it's not fun. It doesn't taste good. Berkey, yeah, that's you have one of the big home water purifiers, and I need to research those, but I think those are good to go. You can just put it in your Berkey, and you're fine. Catching rainwater is my solution. I just haven't got all of the plumbing finished, but I have the tanks. I can store up to 1,000 gallons, but they're pretty much empty right now. Travel Berkey, interesting. I'll have to look into that one. Warren's saying a lot of things. Warren's saying she's going to get rid of the electoral college if she wins. And then what did she say recently? She said something recently that she would do if she won that I just went, my gosh, it's violating the Constitution. What's wrong with this person? Oh, my hand's going to sleep. Man, a lot of people, if you're not watching the chat, a lot of people here are talking about their preferred water purification systems. And so I'm kind of reading that because that's probably, I'm going to capture rainwater and try to keep it clean from the beginning, and I'm going to have a first flush system. But ultimately, I'm going to want to do some kind of filtering, more than likely. There's a lot of dust and sediment. Does lead paint explain the liberal pandemic? I don't know. Is that what makes Trump derangement syndrome? Lead paint? I don't know. Then why do the conservative kids that played with the Chinese toys they're not psychotic? They're all getting good grades, going to college and making something of themselves. Well, I don't know about college. Going to trade school, that's where I'd be sending my kids. The water's bad now, huh? Well, the thing about water, you got to have some to purify. So, having a source of water, if you live in a city, you need to think about this. Where's the nearest fountain? Where's the nearest pond? Where's the nearest lake? Where's the nearest stream? Do you live near a river? How do I get water from point A to point B? A guy that's been carrying 7-gallon jugs, let me tell you, you don't want to do that very far. It's just to get it from the house to the car and the car to the house, right? I would hate to have to carry it if I didn't have a car. So if you don't live close, if you can't look out your window like I do and see water, you need to come up with a plan on where to get it, even before you have a plan for purifying it. Yes, beaver fever. A lot of people from the south don't know what beaver fever is. That's what Giardia specifically is, the bug responsible for beaver fever. Filters with a ceramic filter can be cleaned and last longer. That's true. My Sawyer Mini is guaranteed to go 100,000 gallons. So I potentially could filter 200,000 gallons. However, that's not been really proven, and it requires you to do the maintenance like you're supposed to. It means you got to back flush and do all the maintenance you can, but ceramic water filters will last much longer if you're very studious in keeping them clean. I can't even say that. I never could say that word. You spelled it right. Looks like cryptosporium. That's like, I don't know. That's a hard one. That's a mouthful. But yeah, that's another one of the beaver fever. Crypto is different than Giardia. It's worse. Sans Peru, I think that is just a cat theory. I think it's a conspiracy theory put out by dogs that cats make people crazy. I think it's just that crazy people like cats, I think. Well, look at Dr. Evil. He has his little skinless cat. He doesn't have a dog. Why are all the evil guys cat people? I don't know. Just saying, I didn't write the stories. Yes, I would definitely, Craig, you're right on that. Pre-filtering before you use any of these filters we're talking about is imperative. And you can use pea gravel, you can use cloth, you can use layers of gravel and sand and cloth to pre-filter it. Also, just catching the rainwater instead of pond water is a better place to start from filtering. But the cleaner the water is before you start filtering, the longer the filter will last, the better the water will taste. Yeah, the coronavirus it's already, okay, so let's look at how much money has already been lost in China. That China and Hong Kong right now are ghost towns. These major cities in this, China is a huge producer, and they're not producing. They just stopped producing, okay? And so that could affect global economies and cause a massive global slowdown, if not some kind of collapse. Bieber fever. If you listen to Bieber, it makes you sick. T-Money. T-Money, a high five on the Bieber joke. That's sweet. It should kill China first. I don't know. It's one thing about diseases. They're not a respecter of persons, right? They're just equally deadly to the person that sent out the bioweapon as they are to the person that received it. And in this world of airplanes and international travel, you're already starting to see it spread way beyond China. It's going to spread. This is going to be bad. Just how bad is it going to be? And will it affect folks like us that maybe don't necessarily work or live in an urban area or at the airport? I wouldn't want to work at the airport right now. I'd be quitting. If I had an airport job for minimum wage right now, I'd be like, see you later. I'm going to go work on the farm somewhere. Yeah, Sansperou's right about the impact of some of these Chinese ports shutting down, and the stopping the flow of goods out of China could devastate economies around the world. I almost said globe. Sorry, I'm trying to become politically correct for my flat Earth viewers. Vinny, help me see the light. Vinny is the most easy to get along with flat earther. So. I'm trying not to say globe or around the world. Across the earth. I'm going to start saying intentionally across the flat earth. Not that I believe it, it's just round earthers don't care, and flat earthers would make them feel so much better. A friend who's in China. Wait, you have a friend who was in China on the 18th. He's now in Hawaii. Well, he's probably patient zero for Hawaii. I don't know. Not everybody in China that's been to China has this virus, but you might not be able to say that in 6 weeks. I agree. If the earth was really flat, cats would have already knocked things off the side of the earth already. That's because they... See you, T-Money. Have a good one, my brother. Stored water from faucets last 6 months. Yes, I routinely, it depends on how you store them. Give you an example. My sister is also carrying water for her RV, and she takes these 6-gallon jugs, her and her son, and I help her as much as I can, and we put water in her RV tank, right? Well, she had 3 or 4 of these filled up with, like regular tap water. And she gets it from a friend. She gets her water from a friend I don't want to get my water from. So anyway, leave it at that. But I'd rather pay for water. But anyway, so hers sat out there for about 3 days, and she had to come get some bleach because it was already turned green. So you can't leave it in sunlight in a container. It's got to be in a dark place. My containers are black, for my outdoor storage, my 2 500-gallon tanks. And they also have a liner, a UV protective liner. So they got to be protected from sunlight. That's the main thing. There can be no sunlight. You got to keep mosquitoes out of the water. So if it's stored in a dark place, city water will last a long, long time. And I've used my emergency water because you remember, if you're a fan of the channel, when I lived in Oregon, there was an algae bloom, and you couldn't drink the tap water for like 6 weeks. And I started carrying water the summer before, back in Oregon, before I even came out here. And I had water what I had stored that I was rotating every 6 months untreated. I was keeping them in these 7-gallon cubes in the garage under a blanket. So we were right at the time when I was about to rotate them when the water crisis hit, and I used that 6-month-old water, and I can tell you it was fine. So I can guarantee that in a standard jug kept in a dark place, water will keep 6 months. Some say water will keep indefinitely in those environments. If you have a water-approved container and you keep it completely dark and let no light get to it whatsoever, then your water will last forever. Water doesn't ever go bad. It just gets algae growth. Well, Jack, here's the thing. If you believe in God, and I do. So Jack asked, at what point do we just give up? Sorry, that didn't sound right. Jack asked, at what point do we just give up and want to meet our maker? Well, if you're alive at this point in time and you believe in God, then God put you here for a reason. God put us here for a purpose, that we're supposed to be here at this time in history, that if this is going to indeed be the hardest time in human history to survive, then God put the people here he intended to be here at this time to survive. So to give up, to quit, is to go against God's will for my life. If he wanted me to quit, he'd just take me out. He'd just come and get me. He'd just whirl the wheel within a wheel around like he did Elijah and pick me up and take me to, to heaven. Or, we'd do it the old-fashioned way and, I'd get hit by a truck. So it's my job to keep going because I got a purpose. And I may not know what the purpose is, but I wouldn't be here if there wasn't a purpose. And so that's what will keep me getting up and walking on bloody stumps if I have to keep going from day to day. How's that? I don't know what the future's going to bring. I know that this live stream for me is probably one of the most dire ones I've ever done because there's so much going on at once. Potential civil war in Virginia. We've got what looks like a rigging of elections and a fraudulent election coming up, which can only lead to war. We have international terrorism, and now we have a pandemic. Woohoo! Reminds me of Slim Pickens riding the nuclear bomb down. It's a woo, woo, we're riding the bomb. We're gonna ride this till it burns to the ground. We're just gonna ride it into the ground, right? This plane's crashing. I'm gonna get out on the wing and have some fun. But you gotta laugh to keep from crying. Well, guys, it's been a great live stream. Now's the time to do a super chat if you want to get me one of those before I go. Any help is great. Great help. I don't have much resources, and like you, I got to survive this. So if you got any extra, drop them off my way. And my job is looking a little less desirable in the face of a pandemic. I mean, I'm going to have to do it, but meeting 100 people in crowded fast food restaurants and delivering food to people who are calling in to get food because they're sick already is it's not a way to avoid a pandemic. So anyway, any bit you can help, that would be great. You can also help me out and cut YouTube out of the middleman if you want to send help by way of snail mail. You can reach me at P.O. Box 2915, P.O. Box 2915, 2915, Weatherford, Texas, 76086. And you know what? We're going to make it through because ultimately, and I'm going to do a coffee talk on this soon, in so many ways, life is just a simulation. That life is just a test. It's just a game. I'm not clinging to this world other than I'm here to do something, and I'm going to not quit until I do it. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate that. There is the address right there on the screen in the chat. So, I'm going to keep on keeping on. And it's just great to be living in an interesting time, honestly. I'm an adventurer, so it's good to have some kind of adventure facing me. And I'd rather go out in the midst of a grand adventure than to go out sick in bed. So as an old man, I mean, who wants to die slow, right? So one of my viewers bought me lunch in Tennessee, or dinner in Tennessee on my way back. And he said, Sage, he said, I'm always nervous about things, and I sometimes have a hard time sleeping. And, you seem like nothing ever bothers you. And I just looked at him and I said, it's because, and he's like, how is that? How come you seem to be calm all the time and you don't seem to be stressed? You don't seem to be worried. And I just told him, I said, it's faith. I just have faith. I just believe in God so firmly that I know he's got my back. And I said, and so I just treat life like it's a great big game. Life is a game. I've already won. When I accepted Jesus, I won, right? I won the end result. Now it's just, I'm just in it for the game. I'm just in it for the adventure, because I already won when I took Christ into my heart and sided with the winner. The rest is just gravy. Right? So that's why I'm happy all the time. No matter, even if I lose, I still won. I already won, right? I'm already on the winning side, and the rest is just for my own benefit and the benefit of others, you know? So yeah, pass that along. It's all good, because we're on the right side. Thanks, one Coke to go. I appreciate that. And I'll probably get a Coke to go. I don't know, it's that time. I'm glad I could be beneficial. You know, maybe that's why I'm still here, so I can keep preaching the gospel of peace. Too often we don't spread the gospel of peace. We spread the gospel that, you know, as we see it, which often is condemnation and arrogance. And you know what? One of my favorite things to do as a preacher was to pronounce the peace of God over people. So I pronounce over you the peace of God. All right. We'll see you next time.